Let me know when you started, and I'll start. Recording started.
Yes, sir.
Good to go. All right, gentlemen. Hey, just like I said, good afternoon again. Sorry for the inconvenience, the little mix up. But today we're gonna do the most excellent master's degree. For those that don't know me, I companion Randall out of Mount Moriah, number 4, with a spoon, not number 2. So I know y'all came first. That's okay. We'll deal with that later. But again, we're gonna dive into this degree. I thought there was some interesting parallels that we need to share. Hence why we put this training together. So hope you guys enjoy. All right. As we look at the agenda, some of the things we're gonna go through today, we'll do a smaller introduction, which we're kind of doing now. Meaning of Second Chronicles, which is the Bible verse chapter 6. Purpose of this degree, the removal of the apron and the 6 circumambulations, and then the completion of the temple. But as we look at this picture right here, here's a question everybody on this call. You don't have to answer, you can put it in the chat, but just for context and thought process. As we think about the blue house, when we open our blue house, we always talk about the sanctum sanctorum, or the Holy of Holies. So what is the sanctum sanctorum, right, or the Holy of Holies? This is the 9th arches here, the 9 arches here, and we'll get into why that's important later. Now, the introduction of Chronicles 6, chapter 1, and these are words biblical. This is straight from Chronicles, the Bible. Then Solomon prayed, "O Lord, you have said that you will live in a thick cloud of darkness. Now I have built glorious temples for you, a place where you can live forever." Again, for context, Solomon was allowed to build his temple because David could not build his temple. This book really is Book of Chronicles. It's a continuation of the first book of Chronicles. The chief purpose of this particular book, although strongly recognizes prophetic element in the religious life. And this book, Chronicles, is covered, and this whole degree is covered through the 4th century through the 11th century. This degree falls into 18 divisions. Each division really just covered a reign of kings for King Solomon and all the kings that preceded him. So it covers those 18 divisions, covering those specific kings, thus providing a recording division of King David's house, and spans over about 400 years. Lastly, the degree is set up exactly when you set up this degree to perform it. It's set up exactly like the blue house. And what you'll find interesting is when you come in, the candidate will see that someone is missing. Now, as you can see here, we talk about when. Second Chronicles has discussed the events that took place in the early years of Solomon's reign, specifically, again, from the 4th to the 11th century. And his reign spanned over 40 years. And as we can recall, he was one of the younger kings, the youngest king, right? And then he was anointed by his father David to rule. Some of the key characters, Solomon, son of David, is the 3rd king, the God's prophet, and then the assembly of Israel. But then let's look at some interesting things about Solomon, and as they're covered in Chronicles 6, specifically 6, 1 through 11. Solomon blessed the congregation of Israel that had gathered in the temple. He had blessed God in front of all the people that spoke fondly of their father's desire to build the temple. Solomon worshiped the Most High God and was worshiped and praised by the Most High God for keeping the promise to his father David, which allowed him to build the temple. But God permitted that son being Solomon, to inherit the throne in his full glory. Now, the purpose of this degree, why do we have this degree? What is the purpose of the degree? Why do we even do it and conduct it? Why was it developed in the first place? Sometimes called, just like I said earlier, when we were waiting to get on, it's a pivot degree, because it completes the story of one cycle and prepares for the next cycle. As a candidate transitions, then it's preparing them for the next cycle. But biblically, we think about it, indeed, in the mainland of Europe, Royal Arch has played a key role in both the rite and strict observance of Baron von Hun, and in the Scottish rectified rites. These are different rites, Jean-Baptiste Willemoes in the 1700s. Both of these orders, being Christian orders, the Royal Arch story was used to lead candidates from the Old Testament, again, pivot, to the New Testament. We as Master Masons, we think about this in terms, we depict Hiram as being raised from the dead. Okay. Now, as we think about that, we think about that in terms that, okay, Hiram's raised from the dead, but what does that mean? How did that start? Where does that come from? All masons have completed this physical temple, at least we think we are completing the physical temple. But in essence, we're actually completing a spiritual ornamental edifice, as our rituals tell us and the Bible tells us. And now, indeed, we witness the destruction of the temple later as we get into the royal art side. But the symbolism, then specifically in this degree, symbolizes Hiram's death, because that's what I said is missing. When you come into this degree, Hiram is missing. So we have to try to tie these pieces together. As I always say, masonry is a beautiful story told backwards. Now, but what does it really mean? Okay, obviously completion of the physical temple. What is the requirements to finish the physical temple, the building? And we can find this in our Red House Ritual, page 98. Okay, the requirements to physically finish this temple. Okay, again, it's called a pivot degree, which bridges from the Old Testament to the New Testament. And if you look on page 64 of the Capitular Arts workbook, it'll give you the whole context and to conceptualize why it pivots that way. What veils represent the degree? Here's a hint. If you think about the veils as you enter, there's 4 veils. What veil pivots the degree? Hey, Trey, whoever that is, mute him, please.
This is bullshit. You know who I am. My family.
That was good. All right, so we're thinking about these degrees, man, and it's funny. Nobody ever really tells us, or we think the degrees go in chronological numerical order. But is that really true? Do these degrees fall in order? Let's look. These degrees do not fall in the order that you think they fall in. Entered apprentice, fellowcraft, Mark Master degree. Because remember, we did Mark Master's degree. That's the first one we did in this series. Mark Master's degree is the 4th degree, but you notice that degree falls right after the fellowcraft degree. But then we had the select master's degree. And earlier in the presentation, we talked about the Sanctum Sanctorum of the Holy of Holies. The select master's degree introduces us to some different biblical characters. And we talked about King Solomon a lot. So in the select master's degree, we learn about Zabud and his revered relationship with King Solomon. You saw those 9 arches and apartments. They're very pivotal, right? Once we get into the royal and select, I'll go into that, but that's very pivotal in the select master's degree. The Sanctum Sanctorum of the Holy of Holies. And then I ask you this, where was a Master Mason's degree conferred and why? And that's important in the building of King Solomon's temple and why it was constructed. But then we go into the Royal Master's degree, and then you notice the Master Mason's degree. I said, where's the Sanctorium or Holy of Holies, and what was the Master Mason's degree? And then you see the next chronological degree is the Master Mason's degree, what we deem the 3rd degree. And then you go Royal Master's, the 2nd section, and then the most excellent master right here. This is a pivot. We're pivoting from the Old Testament to the New Testament. So the degrees are not in the order that you think they are. And here's the whole theological layout from Entered Apprentice all the way to the Order of Malta for Knights Templars. So it continues to go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, all the way to Knights Templars. And there's a reason why, because this story is being told in different pieces, hence the cryptic side of Masonry. Now, the removal of the apron, because that happens throughout Royal Arch, symbolic, right? But what does it mean? The removal of the apron is a powerful symbol that we have come to the end of the symbolic degree. It also represents the 7th day of rest, because we're in Sunday, the 7th day of rest. Referred to the above, everything in this degree emphasizes and stresses completion, completing the temple, completing your inner temple, right? Completing relationships, completing the pivot at the end of the cycle and the beginning of the new one. But to proceed from one cycle to the next, it is important that you must learn the lessons of the previous cycle, okay? Because you can't go forward in life until you learn, you correct your mistakes. If you don't correct your mistakes, it's hard to go forward and be successful. You can, but it's hard to do it. The next slide will show a timeline, but we already seen the timeline, so that was kind of a typo. We talked about the 6 circumambulations, right? The number 6 in its meaning is related to man and human weakness. I'm gonna say that again, the number 6, because we do 6 circumambulations in this degree. As we pivot around the altar, we take the candidates around the altar. It's related to man and human weakness, the evils of the devil and the manifestation of sin, the number 6. Man was created in 6 days, right? And then the Most High rests on the 7th. Men are appointed 6 days to labor. Then they are commanded to rest on the 7th day. Now, I want you to think about something. When were you paid your wages? You were paid on the 6th hour of the 6th day of the week, which was Friday at high noon. In the opening of your Blue House Lodge, who embodies that Friday at high noon? As the sun in the south. That's all I'm gonna say. And then think about it from there, right? That's as we think about the work days and what and Jewish and where does that come from, right? But in your picture to the left here on the slides, you see Buddhists doing their circumambulation. What is that symbolic of? It's symbolic and it shows devotion. It pays tributes and it's a cultivation of their mind and it acclimates merit. So as we think about our candidates doing their circumambulation, it's kind of the same thing. We're cultivating our minds. They're learning a new degree, understanding this new knowledge that they're trying to get, and then they're acclimating to this new merit. Now, in circumambulations, the zodiological signs serve as a reminder of the creations. Indeed, many papers exist that link the building of the temple with the story of creation. Consider again the number 7, that being the number of completion. The temple was 7 years and upwards in its construction. In Leviticus 25:4, the 7th year is called the Sabbath, which is the day God rested. The dedication took place during the Feast of the Tabernacles, and this was on the 7th-day festival, 7-day festival held in the 7th month, which is what? July, the summer solstice. Okay. Now, as we think about the completion of the temple, the only point really to be made here for this specific lecture is that to bring forth the capstone. Now, the copstone or capestone is the last stone which tops off the building. We think about that in terms of the keystone, but it's not the keystone. For the keys of the arch together, in most states, they have changed the word to keystone from capstone. And we think about Brother Albert Mackey, former Grand General High Priest. He makes a big deal at this point when he talks about perhaps the confusion in deliberation. The keystone has an important significance because of its shape. Now, remember, in the 4th degree, we have the candidates carry around the keystone, and they're baffled because of its familiar shape. But an essential purpose in the arch sometimes would be traded as holding up the canopy of heaven, as we think about that in Noah's rainbow arch, right? Perhaps referencing the Mark Mariner's degree. If you get into the Capitular Arch workbook or you read the next reference, 9th arch, it talks about the Royal Arch degree, the Royal Mariner's degree, and the Mark Mariner's degree. These preceded the Royal Arch degrees, by the way. We won't get into that now. But in essence, the stones form a zodiological signs between the solstice, we talked about the summer solstice and the winter solstice, which marks the 6-month term of the lodge, which are in the 6th month now. Masters in several traditions, the capstone marks the true completion. The capstone is a true completion of a building, yet its shape is of little interest since it's not just rectangular, so to speak. And here are my references, gentlemen, and so concludes our Sunday's lecture. So now we'll just open it up for discussion.
Greetings, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well. Sir, this was an outstanding lecture. You had asked the question, should the Master Mason's degree be reformed? It should be done in the 9th arch. A lot of people don't know that, but the Master Mason's degree should be done in the 9th arch.
Correct. Absolutely correct, right? But how do we get to the point where we teach our Master Masons that there's something more beyond the symbolic, something more beyond the 3rd degree that really they need to learn because they're missing pieces?
But that's the question we always ask one another, and having, webinars and stuff like this is always informative because, like you said, the degrees are out of order. So when you look at it, you look at the degrees, they are a continuation. These degrees are continuations of the Master Mason degrees, the first 3. And then if you look at Scottish Rite, especially when you're looking at Royal Arch and Royal Select, their connection. Scottish Rite, when you're looking at it, may give you a little more. When you're looking at Large Perfection and Chapter of Rose Croix, it gives you a little bit more. And some people will say one is better than the other. I always tell them that's foolishness. One is Old Testament, one is New Testament, and it kind of bridges the two together, like you said in the beginning. So that's what makes it interesting. So when you're looking at them, you're going through and reading them, you get a little bit more information depending on which one you're looking at.
No, that's true. That's true. Brother Weatherspoon, go ahead.
So the one thing that I'm kind of fond of doing is when people see, people have apron cases and people ask questions like, "What's that apron for?" So somebody sees my Royal Arch apron. Usually, the first thing I tell them is, do you had a real word?" And of course, they usually think yes. And then I tell them, like, go read your ritual and then read the fact that it says you have a substitute word. So if you want the real word, come join the Royal Arch. And so there's, kind of my way to, entice or intrigue people into knowing about the Royal Arch and other houses as well. But another thing is, to get people interested, you have to show them what they should be interested in. And so I think a big key is being seen doing things as members of these particular bodies. A lot of times everybody got a Mason shirt. Everybody got one of them shirts. Not everybody has a Royal Arch shirt or, whatever the case may be, Royal and Select. So those are the things that kind of bridge the gap to making Freemasonry a more I guess holistic experience from that standpoint, is giving people something that they can contribute to and that they know something about. Because when you teach people, then they are more inclined to share what they know.
And the adage is true. Knowledge is obtained by degrees, right? We think about that. It's such a simple term, and I keep saying it over and over again. But you talk about what Clarence was saying earlier, right? You're talking about the Scottish Rite. People refer to the Scottish Rite just for a second as a college of masonry. But then my question and my retort is, how can you get a college degree without the prerequisites? The prerequisites are given, the foundation of the prerequisites are here in the York Rite, right? And that's the explanatory side of masonry. That's what the York Rite is. It's a pivot. The whole York Rite from Royal Arch all the way to Knights Templar is a pivot to the rest of the degrees, because you can't, and I firmly believe this, you cannot comprehend the other degrees unless you really understand the bigger picture. It's like putting together a puzzle. If I dump all the pieces on the table and I take away certain pieces, that puzzle's going to be incomplete. Yeah, you may be happy with an incomplete puzzle. Some people are happy in that sense, but most people are not, right? So we think about it in that terms. But I agree with you, Brother Witherspoon, that essentially the educational piece is how we build, right? How do we build? How do we get better as a collective? Because everybody's worrying about how do we increase our numbers. Well, brothers want to learn. At the end of the day, brothers just want to learn. We can talk about a whole bunch of other stuff. They want to learn. They want to be a part. They want to know that they're a part of something that they know about, because nobody wants to come to meetings confused. You know what I mean? Nobody wants to do that. So what else, brothers, do you have? Yeah, go ahead, Brother Osanai.
A question for our people that joined the meeting today, if they want a consistory, is there a way to compare the Lodge of Perfection to Holy Warrior Art?
It's a direct correlation based on the degrees. If you think about it, they're all tied together. All three are tied together.
So is there a way for us to convince them that, if you're in a consistory, then you might want to come to the Royal Art?
It's not for us to convince it. It's for us to educate. Just educate and let them make an informed decision. We can't, because once we get into convincing people, now we're splitting the hairs. We're gangbanging on Masonry again, Crips and Bloods. We don't want to do that. That's kind of what we've been doing, and it ain't working. All right, Clarence, go ahead, brother.
If I can answer that question the brothers asked, that's a good question, because we get that question all the times. A lot of times, because we can get 32 or 33 degrees. Everybody say, oh, it's like it's an attraction to it, right? And it's good, I think all of us probably 33rd or higher. But when you look at it, right, Lodge of Perfection is like a continuation of the ancient craft, right? So when you look at it, it's just a continuation. So then when you go to Chapter of Rose Croix, it's continuation, Roll Off, Roll Select, and of course the last is Knights Templar. So when you look at them, I think sometimes Scottish Rite may explain a little better, it makes it a little more simpler. But like you said, the York Rite degrees itself, it is the foundation. I was telling somebody one day, we was having a conversation. We was talking about Lucifer, right? And I said, well, I had heard that he was one of the cherubims, right? So somebody said, I never heard that. I heard a preacher say that. So I went and looked it up, right? So he was not only a cherubim, he was also an archangel. So when you go to Revelations, he fought Michael. right? So it says Michael, a lower archangel, for Lucifer, a higher archangel. So what do archangels do? They watch over us. What do cherubims do? They guard stuff. So that's why if you look at it, he was a Garden of Eden. That's why he was there. He was not only a garden, but he was a protector. So if you look at it, he never said he didn't love God. He said he wanted to be him, right? He never said he didn't love him. So when you look at it, that's why we call him the father of lies and father of deception, because he deceives us all the time. He was the prettiest of all the angels, right? So again, you start looking at stuff and we can take it in different contexts and it just blow your mind. So it's like the truth, like an older brother told me, the truth is right there in front of you. It's just that if we want to go out and research it, sometimes we don't like what we find.
Yeah, the truth hurts, but then again, we think about just this degree, the most excellent master's degree. We think about the number 6, right? We think about that being a manifestation of sin as well. So again, all of these things are right in front of us. In masonry, we use a lot of symbol. But what are symbols? Sensible uses of images to express a hidden meaning, right?
I mean,
and go ahead, Steve.
no, I was just gonna say, even when you talk about the number 6, so you know, what does Solomon's seal look like? Does anybody do people know what Solomon's seal look like? It's a triangle.
If you're in a nice temple, you should know.
I mean, even in New York, right? Even in Royal Life, you should know what Solomon's seal look like. If you know what Solomon's seal look like, you know the importance of the number 6, which is the importance of this marked master degree. Right. And so we do ourselves a disservice by only teaching the ritual. And one thing, and I'll say it, one thing that is kind of interesting about living in the South is that Masonry is a very Christian organization down here. Right. I might live here, but I grew up in California, grew up in South Central. And so, you know, there are parameters on the things that they even want us to talk about as it pertains to Freemasonry. And so one of the more important things is the true mark of an intelligent man is being able to entertain an idea without necessarily accepting it. You don't have to believe it, but you need to have access to it. Because it does not have to change your belief system. It doesn't have to change what you think about it, but you need the information. Because with information, you can make a informed decision. And so when we talk about the Royal Arch, one of my favorite books on the Royal Arch talks about occult symbology. And when I first got the book, I had no idea what occult symbology meant. Honestly, the first thing that came to mind when it said occult was witchcraft. And I was like, no, this can't be it. And once I started reading and studying some of the stuff that was in the book as it pertains to the Royal Arch, I was like, oh, you know, you build bridges. We talking about the summer solstice and the winter solstice, and we're talking about the breastplate and all that other kind of stuff. It all ties in. We're just doing ourselves a disservice by solely teaching the ritual because it does us a disservice because the Scottish Rite is more esoteric when you start to look at it from the get-go. Yeah. When you study the Scottish Rite, it's always a deeper meaning immediately. We don't always get that in the Royal Arch. In the Blue House, the red, the purple, and the black, we teach the ritual and keep on going. We don't teach esoterics until we get to the Scottish Rite. If we taught it in the Royal Arch and the York Rite bodies, I would dare to say that it would be as interesting to some as the Scottish Rite is because all the stuff is here. Whether you're talking about Enoch, whether you're talking about the death of Hiram the Fifth, all of it is in the Scottish Rite, but we see it first here. We just don't discuss it the way that we do in the Scottish Rite. And so that's the thing when we're talking about the York Rite and the Holy Royal Arch. The Holy Royal Arch is the basis of the beginning of Masonry. So we need to be able to have these conversations and these esoteric discussions about the number 6 and number 7 and all this other kind of stuff, because then it makes Masonry more interesting on the other side. Because like, oh man, I've seen this before. It's not such a culture shock. And instead of us trying to divide us like Bloods and Crips, as you said earlier, we could all really just meet and say, hey, we could have these discussions in depth because people are well informed.
Yeah, we can all most certainly grow together. And I just think about Dr. Maya Angelou, and she said, if you don't like something, change it. If you can't change it, change your attitude. This platform is us changing our attitude, right? Giving brothers an opportunity to come on and really understand something from a deeper meaning outside of the words of the ritual. Because you notice in that lecture, I only referenced the ritual once, just for one small point, because it's bigger than the ritual. So I totally agree. Who else, brothers? Do you guys have any dialogue based on what we went over today? Because again, this at this point, just for those that just got on, we like to do a Q&A at the end where we just have open dialogue. And then these are recorded and uploaded to YouTube so you can go back and watch them. But we like to pick each other's brains and have a dialogue, a titrate, if you will, of just questions and answers. Who else has any comments, questions? Go ahead, brother Grand Lecturer.
Good afternoon, brothers, and I'm sorry to come on a little late. I was driving back from Sacramento, St. John Day, but I feel that the ritual is pretty much like the very beginning. It's the one door that you come in to see if you are approved to be a Mason. That's why they don't get very much. Ever since I came into the Red House, I've been using a lot of stories from the Red House, and I look at some of the brothers' looks in their face, and they're like, "Well, what do you mean that Hiram Abiff is not dead?" And I have to track back and like say, "Okay, you know what? I'm sorry. That's not right. That's not right." When I know that these brothers are not in the Red House, but every now and then I will slip and will run into something like that, But these brothers that are out there, and that's why a lot of brothers like esoteric masonry, and they want to get into those discussions because they feel it's a shortcut to go into the Red House or into the consistory. And I tell them, no, that's not it. He said, well, why is it that the ritual is not right? Because I was told by so-and-so that Hiram Abiff is not really dead. I was told that you have to get a past master's degree before you become a past master. And a lot of there's a lot of questions that I've thrown that that it's hard to explain, because they're not in the Red House and they're not even like in the Purple House, And that's a lot of my things that I ran into when I sit down with brothers and we talk masonry, and they go straight into the Red House, straight into the Red House. So it's I am glad that we're putting this out there, but it makes the grand lecturers or in other past masters' job a little harder because now we're talking about something totally different, and we know we can't. We can only give them so much. You understand what I'm saying,
No,
Dr.
I
Randall?
got you. I got you, and I would kind of agree to disagree, and I think the disagreement is not making their job harder. The past master's job is to be that pillar of light, that force of education. So if the past master is not well informed, then they should be in a space where they can get the knowledge, or they should provide themselves or go and seek the knowledge themselves. So again, we talk about the symbolism. The past master's degree is a really powerful degree, right? That's why when we did that degree, was it last month you did it? Past master?
Yes.
Yeah, fifth degree.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of things that the past master can stand and learn, and they'll be well informed. Just like next week, we're going to do the meaning of the open and the closing charge. We're just digging deeper. So the past masters, the brothers, it's not a competition. It's just us trying to learn more about masonry as a collective, right? And then when you get to a point where you're not humble enough to learn, then you got a problem anyway. You know what I mean? Like if you're at that point where you say, I can't learn nothing else, you're wrong. You should be a lifetime student. And everybody on here and every brother around the world should be a lifetime student, because we can all go 1,000 years and not know everything about masonry. Masonry is so vast and deep. There's so many parallels and twists. Nobody knows everything about masonry. So that's never going to be a completed task, so to speak. But I hear you and understand that, though. I do. What else, brothers?
Dr. Brandon, I have a question. And if you could bring up that the slide deck and to that timeline, so I just make sure I'm understanding this correctly. And I think it kind of alludes to Right Worshipful Grand Lecture's question as far as the succinctness of it. So what we're saying is that these degrees are really, jumping back and forth. Like you said, it's a beautiful story told backwards. And to really understand, we really need to understand how the degrees are, I guess, set up in order to explain or expound to a brother, why is it that you want to go to the Red House? Yeah, perfect. So, the Mark Master degree for the York Rite is, actually before the Master Mason degree for the Blue House. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay. So to me, this explains a lot to why, one, it's cryptic, two, it could be confusing. And I'm curious, I'm going to go back and just at least start reading each one of the rituals in this particular order to, I guess, try to gain a better understanding of it. And then the Scottish Rite, go ahead, sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
And then the Scottish Rite, my understanding is that is more of the esoteric studies of all the degrees in Masonry.
It appears to be esoteric, but it's more spiritual and biblical than anything. But it does, just like Steve was saying, it comes off as esoteric because of its teachings, because of the way it's taught. I'll say that. So, in other words, just to kind of, you're going to go back and do your due diligence, but I just want to bring attention to it. Focus your attention on these two degrees right here, Select Master and Royal Master degree, first section. If you notice, Mark Master degree, these two degrees, and the Master Mason's degrees. Here is all I'll say, and then we'll go into it in a couple months here. This is where the Master Mason's degree was conferred, not here. Does that make sense? Because at the building King Solomon's Temple, there's 9 arches and apartments that were built underneath King Solomon's Temple, which is considered the Sanctum Sanctorum or the Holy of Holies here. Right? We get introduced to King Solomon's best friend. We get introduced to the Grand Stewards that protected the 9 arches. So again, we just have to understand what Masonry is deeper than the ritual. It's deeper than the surface. And we got to understand how it flows in order for it to make sense. It's cryptic for a reason. Right? It's very cryptic for a reason. We're not a secret society, but we have secrets. And that's true, and that's for a reason. But these things can go through biblically. Go ahead, Brother Harris.
Thank you. For cryptic Masons, after Grand Session, after July, we're going to start a series just like what Dr. Randall's doing here on cryptic Masonry. So I would love for all of you that can be there to be there for those lectures.
And that, trust me, when you start getting into the cryptic Masonry, it's going to uncover some not deep, dark secrets, but it's going to make you really think. Brother Kimber, I think you had your hand up, brother.
I had a question. We were talking about where the Master Mason degree fall in because of ritual. And if we're thinking of ritual and the degrees, in ritual, in the Blue House, you meet in an unfinished Sanctum Sanctorum. Then, I know we're talking about Royal Arch. So Royal Arch is still an unfinished Sanctum Sanctorum. But when you get into Royal Select, well, it's a finished Sanctorum. So obviously, if you're meeting in an unfinished Sanctum Sanctorum, you're meeting before you got to the cryptic Masonry where it was finished. So basically, like I say, I understand that we're talking about Masonry as a whole, from the Blue House to York Rite to Cicerory. I think that as you go up both sides of the triangle, you need both sides to complete the story. And to me, from my journey through Masonry, York Rite really has been the one that teaches what's going on in the Blue House. You learn more in York Rite than you do in the Blue House. And I don't know like if it's any other state, but you don't learn the past master's degree in the Blue House. You only learn the past master's degree in York Rite. They don't even talk about the past master's degree in the Blue House. So the way I see it and understand it is York Rite, to me, is where you're learning it, although I understand they call Scottish Rite the college degree, but I think in my walk with it, with both Scottish Rite and York Rite, I believe I get more of a deeper understanding of what's in the ritual, because it breaks down the ritual, the symbols, and everything, because it makes everything more so in York Rite in all the houses.
I kind of got what you're saying, and I will say this, just for context and for yourself, for understanding, go back and read the second landmark of the 25 ancient landmarks, because that's going to give you a real foundational piece on what you're talking about. Now, as far as the past masters degree, that's a conversation we can certainly have offline, as far as it not being taught. But that you can never, before the Act of the Union, you could never have received that degree anyway, until you were a Royal Archmason. So again, go back and read the second landmark to give yourself context, and then even bring that back next month as a deep dive discussion, because then we'll be into the seventh degree anyway, which there's a lot of discussion. That's a very deep degree. So appreciate it, man. The context. Anybody else about this? I ain't gonna keep you long and hope you Sunday. Go ahead, Grand Lecture.
I got one more question. This is a question pretty much for everybody in this call, because I did have some really deep conversation with brothers that are not, that are not Royal Arch. And when you start talking Royal Arch Masonry, and then you compare it to the Blue Lodge, and then later on when they join and they find out that this is I deem this to be wrong. So why would you teach us this in the Blue House, and then when we join the Red House, you teach us this as the truth? Why is it coming across as a lie? My question to that, my answer to that would be, okay, brother, you know what? Once again, we're just when it comes to the Blue House and you get your degrees, we're actually just I'm looking for a word. We're making sure that you're worthy, okay? And then when you come over to the Red House, that we give you the truth, it's unquestionable, because others are asking, why didn't you give me this in the beginning? And it's really it's a big trip, because I feel like a liar, when I'm asked that, and even though it is in a totally different house, it just it comes across as not being truthful. Now, is there something that we can do in the future to help with this?
Well, I got my things on that, but let's do it in order. Brother Clarence, Osinawa had his hand up first, so Osinawa go, and then when you're done, go ahead, Brother Clarence, trainer. And then Steve, I know you tried to chime in too, so you can go after Brother Clarence. Go ahead.
If I may, all in one, the beauty of our craft is at its inception, it is literally about intellectualism, everybody being liberal, having the God-given ability of reason and logic. There is no right or wrong in our craft. We are all travelers. Our goal is to build a temple not made with hands, eternal in heaven. In our craft, there's no right way of going about things, and there's no wrong way of going about things. Indeed, there are those who are heavily invested in the upright, and there are those that are heavily invested in the consistory. The truth is, if you want the entire story, it is highly encouraged that we do both. If I may, if someone were to tell you that they were lied to at the Blue House, the truth is they weren't. They were given a portion of the story. But they were also told, if you want to advance, then you can go to either route to learn. So if someone were to tell you they were lied to, no. Nobody was lied to in the Blue House. And if you were to read the ritual in the Blue House, literally everything that we learned in York Rite and the consistory is in the Blue House. With that, I respectfully give full back to you, sir.
All right, go ahead, brother. Train.
Grand Lecture, just tell them, like an old timer told me, they're not ready yet, So when they say it's a lie, it's not a lie. It is not ready yet. Just tell them we don't look at it, but because we all Prince Hall Masons, ancient craft is the beginning of York Rite. And we don't look at it that way. It's the beginning. So tell them right now they still in the beginning. Tell them they just not ready. As they move through from Royal Arch, and if they're already in Scottish Rite will make it simpler for them because it's talking about New Testament. I tell them you York Rite, like ancient crafts beginning, it talks about Old Testament. So just tell them right now you learn the New Testament. When you come back and learn Old Testament, then you understand. Say this time they not ready yet. That's all. It ain't a lot. They just not ready.
Brother Witherspoon and then Brother Fields.
Okay, so I got a couple of thoughts on that for somebody to say that they're being lied to. Number one, Dr. Randall, I sent you 2 things in your email. I would love for you to share that with the people that are on this Zoom. One is a Masonic astronomy in the Holy Royal Arch kind of article. The other one is the chronological order of all Masonic degrees, York and Scottish Rite. What I want to say about
afterwards, I'm looking at it now.
What I would say to somebody who feels like they're being lied to, I think it's the fault of those of us who have been in a while and not being able to accurately explain what Freemasonry is. And that's my opinion. I serve as grand lecturer in a couple of places, but the one thing that I've learned is that the true mark of an intelligent man is not only to obtain wisdom and knowledge, but to be able to explain it to everybody from the CEO to the janitor. And when you can do that, it makes it much easier for people to feel like they can get what you're giving them as well. I enjoy it when people challenge me. That's one of my favorite things. If you tell me I don't know something, I'm gonna do whatever it takes to go find it. That's not everybody's pursuit though, and everybody doesn't have that desire. So when people say, "Hey, I'm being lied to," it's like the brother said earlier. You only have received part of the story. Freemasonry is an expansive story that ties in several different belief systems, all in the concept of making good men better. So nobody has lied to you, but if you study the rituals and not just recite them, but if you study the ritual, you will find out that nobody lied to you. You have to study to know that you received the substitute word. You have to study to know that in the 4th degree, it fits better in with the 2nd degree. You have to study these things.
Yeah.
This is what we talk about when we say symbols and allegory. It takes a learned mind to study Freemasonry. Like I said, anybody could wear a shirt, anybody could wear a ring, anybody can do that. It's easy. And that's how most Masons are. We take the easy way out when it pertains to Freemasonry. We want to do the community service, we want to wear t-shirts, we want to be seen, but we don't want to do the work of Freemasonry. Let's be honest. Not everybody looks at Freemasonry as a profession. If you are a professional at something, that means you do it consistently and you do it well. Most of us only do it on meeting nights. Let's just be honest. It's if we do it then. And sometimes we just going through the motion. And so when it comes to what the Grand Lecturer is talking about, it shows a very well-studied individual to be able to tie in the 2nd degree on the York Rite side to the 9th degree on the Scottish Rite side, just for an example. You have to be able to make sure that not only are you informed well enough to understand the connection, but also informed well enough to share the information that you have with other people. I did not so receive it, neither shall I impart it. People have recited these words, but people haven't taken them seriously. Once you start to study Freemasonry and you start to build those bridges and those connectors, it makes it easier for you to talk about Freemasonry. One thing that I've always said to change my opinion about Freemasonry was I may have been in maybe 2 or 3 years, and I was sitting at a table with an older past master. He had been a 33rd longer than I had been living. And he looked at me, and when I told him I joined the Royal Arch, and he said, "So what do you know about Masonry?" And I was like, "Well, I know this, that, and third." And I got them talking. He said, "You know absolutely nothing." That ain't the way he said it, but But he said, "You know absolutely nothing." That man sat me down for 2 hours and told me more about the Royal Arch in those 2 hours than I had ever read in any book. But that's the practice that is necessary. You have to dedicate yourself to the craft. If you are a professional of your craft, then guess what? That means you excel at what you do in every fashion. We just can't continue to put on a t-shirt and go do community service. You have to study this, because you have to study to show thyself approved unto who? And all of his righteousness. And then these things shall be added unto you, for those of us who grew up in church. If you didn't, I'm sorry, but that's one of the things I heard in the Baptist church. We have to put those things into practice. And so, like I said, I sent Dr. Randall a chronological order. of all the degrees, not just that particular degree, not just particularly the York Rite. And there are other things that make that make it easier to explain. But we just have to make sure that we are well informed enough to make those connections. Because if we're not well informed to make those connections, then it is hard to get people to say, hey, I want to be a member of Mount Moriah number 4, the other Mount Moriah.
I got you, brother. Hey, let me interject because we got a couple people got their hands up. I want to give them the due reference. Brother Fields and then Brother Bang, go ahead.
In addition, what Brother Trenum and Brother Witherspoon said, the way to get this information to uninformed brothers or younger brothers within this organization, just break it down simple. Say it's like Star Wars. Now, Star Wars was a story told of a mystery school or mystery system that made people, be one with the Force. The Force is a spirit. The spirit. These stories are, regurgitated through time to help us remember back to that true story. Masonry is somewhat of the same structure. It's a mystery school, so one can know more about themselves, so they can be more productive and apply the knowledge that they learned within the system, both York and Scottish Rite, to be that better man, that better oneness with the Creator or the Source. Like I said, my best explanation to break it down to a young person or someone of that, technological or geeky type of sense is break it down. Say it's like Star Wars. You have to understand where certain aspects of the story came from. It may not be necessarily in order to make it easy, but it's for those inept who are curious to find out for themselves the mystery of the system so they can apply it for themselves and for the people around them. So just breaking it down, Masonry, just like I said, use the Star Wars analogy to help them understand the system that we work in right now. That's all I have.
Brother Bang, go ahead. Appreciate you.
Yeah, I appreciate Brother Field stealing what I was about to say, but it's all good. It's simple for me. Like Brother Randall said before, Masonry is a beautiful story told backwards. So if you have brothers, especially younger brothers, asking, well, how come you're saying that, King Solomon isn't dead when XYZ? Well, I brought you into the theater 10 minutes before the end of the movie, and you saw the main character, whoever it was, die. You saw this happen, you saw that happen. But you haven't seen everything that led up to it. So that's what is missing. That's what, you get as you go through Masonry. And I think what's throwing them off is the numbering. Because we start off with first degree, second degree, third degree, and then we go up from there, they expect that, okay, first degree is the beginning, second degree is next, third degree, and then they expect everything to go in chronological order. I think the explanation of is not in that order, and the information that Brother Witherspoon sent would help them, and that's something that should be taught as well. It would help them to understand more that, okay, I may have gone through first, second, and third degree, but that's not how the story goes, right? The story starts one place, then it moves to another place, then it goes back and forth. So again, Star Wars reference is perfect because, you have the main villain, although as they progress, as other Star Wars movies came out, you learn of how that villain came to be, or how these characters came to be, how they got there, the whole explanation to it. And again, when explaining things, you have to know your audience. Older members, you could say the simple XYZ. The younger ones, you use those tools that they can relate to understand why we are where we're at and why things are not as linear as they may have thought. So that's my 2 cents.
All right, brothers. We have. I definitely appreciate all the candid feedback, but this is what we need each month, right? These conversations will expand each month. Brother Witherspoon, after this, I'll go to the email thread and I will send that information out to everybody. Just had a quick glance. It is definitely needed. And again, I agree with you in what you said. You should be able to explain Masonry to the janitor and the CEO, and both of them understand. And that makes you effective as a teacher, right? And we just have to become that. But you have to want to. You have to want to. That's the key, right? You got to have a quarter cup of gas, right? So give Yeah, I'm not gonna say the other part. You didn't give a crap. Is what it is. Just have a quarter cup of gas. If you have a quarter cup of gas, you're gonna go a long way. All right, so brothers, again, thank you for your time. That is our hour for the day. If anybody else would just like to give a quick 1 or 2 minute salutation, I know we have most excellent grand and most illustrious grand thrice illustrious masters on here. We have past most illustrious grand thrice illustrious masters on here. Past, right in the grand commanders, so on and so forth. So brothers, I'll kind of just hit on a couple of you real quick because I know you've been pretty silent. And I know you have wise counsel for all of us. So, Brother Harris, if you would, sir, just real quick, do you have anything you would like to say to the brothers on the call?
Yes. Stay in your rituals. Keep studying. Exactly. Stay in your Bibles. Today, Dr. Randall, my hat's off to you, if I had one, because you put the holy back in the Holy Royal Arch, right? So we have to stay in our Bible. And I hope to see you, like I say, after grand sessions when we start doing the series on the cryptic masonry. Thanks again.
Yes, sir. Past most illustrious grand thrice illustrious Master Griffin, sir.
Excellent, excellent. That's all I can say is excellent. Keep up the good work, my brother.
Yes, sir. Brother Moore, are you on here? He's a Radix Grass Scribe. Did he jump off? I don't see him on here anymore. I think he may have jumped off.
Oh, I'm still here, sir.
Okay. Go ahead, Brother Moore.
All I like to say is how good and pleasant it is for brothers to dwell together in unity, man. I always look at these. We got 25 participants, and I mean, they say it's not about the quantity; it's about the quality. But a lot of these brothers need to hear these things because, just like the grand lecturer said, when the brothers come out of Blue House and they go into further degrees, they say, "Well, you lied to me. You said something about this." Masonry is something that is just like the Christians say. You have to take your own cross, pick up your own cross. These degrees you have to learn for yourself and get the understanding of it, how it pertains to your life. And a lot of brothers have to, in order for you to grow in masonry, I always say this in all of my documents I put out or whatever. I says, let's go back to the ground floor of King Solomon's temple. Learn to subdue your passions and improve yourself in masonry. All these degrees are plus degrees because there's no higher degree than the third degree. All these degrees are plus degrees. But we have to learn to subdue our passions and continue to improve ourselves if we want to open up our third eye. And that's all I have to say.
I appreciate you. Brother James Noble, who's serving as our grand worthy patron right now. And he's in our Knights Templar line as well, Captain of the Guard. Go ahead, Brother Noble.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It was a great opportunity to listen to the presentation. Very good dialogue, and I look forward to many more coming up.
No doubt. I appreciate you, sir. Brother Howard Cooks, you got a lot of titles. I ain't going to begin to say all of them. Grand Overseer of Work and all that other good stuff. Brother Cooks, what you got, sir?
Only thing I'd like to say to the brothers is never lose the why. As long as you keep that why on your mind, you'll do all right with masonry. Because I noticed a lot of brothers, they lose that why. And the ritual is just the basic instructions of getting brothers in this thing. The rest of it, you got to do it yourself.
Yeah, take some initiative.
And
absolutely
good and a good presentation. And on the Royal Arts, I think we might need to just go to the timeline to where just stay with the Royal Arts, because that way we don't have Knights Templars on and we don't have the Royal Select. We don't want to get them confused. That's why the Grand Lecture was saying, it can be confusing. We just go to the Royal Arts and we stay with the Royal Arts, and we'll do the past the timeline later.
No, I got you. I just want to give context to this august body on just the timeline, right? Because I don't think that's ever displayed. But just as I'm having conversations, we're having conversations. I totally agree with you. The timeline won't be mentioned. It'll cause a whole bunch of
they get confused because if they're not in the Royal Select, they're and then like you were saying about it. Okay, That's my spiel. Thank you very much.
I got you. Deb Brumfield, sir.
Dr. Randall, as usual,
Sir.
thanks for having me. Excellent, 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 excellent. Two things, and they're gonna be quick. And the two things we talked about through this whole session. One, when do we enlighten the youngins? For number one, we have them in a position to enlighten them when we're raising them. We've already told them part of the story, so they already know that the three ruffians killed somebody. So right there, that should automatically pique their attention. And then two, when they come back and say that you lied to me because you didn't give me, technically we don't give anything, we share info. Now, just like serving food, when you make food for your kids, you give them what you're supposed to give them on the day. And then if they get hungry after that, they have to thirst that. That means they either have to ask you for more or go and get it themselves. So after we raise them and tell them the story, they know the three ruffians killed somebody. That pushes them into the royal arc or into the consistory so they can learn who did the three ruffians kill them, who did the three ruffians kill, and why they killed them. So perfect points. We talked about it. Everybody hashed them out. A couple of people said almost the same thing, but it's like food. We don't give you anything. We share information with you to enlighten you. Now it's up to you after that to thirst the rest of it. Now we'll share, but you have to come with something to the table. You can't come to the table with no plate, no fork, no spoon, no nothing. So you got to do some research on your own. So those two things should push us past the dilemma we in. Past grands, seated grands, past officers, seated officers, companions, and masons. Again, thank you for having me. Dr. Sessions, always enlightening and to the point. And we are so proud that we pushed him in the direction that he's in right now. So again, thanks for having me.
Appreciate you, sir. Now, hey, I'm gonna do a solid for you guys. We have a young brother on here, and I don't want to put him on the spot, but I want to kind of prove a point to everything that we talk about, kind of the summary. He just joined the Royal Arch. So, Brother Madden, what did you think about today, hearing all of this dialogue and triad back and forth? How did it make you feel as a brother that just joined the Royal Archmason? What did you get from today? Because that's important. We can talk a lot of shit, excuse my language, but what did you get from today?
Well, you already know whenever I ask a question, I always take notes. I learned a lot today. I learned basically the Second Chronicles stories, how everything was in chronological order, how everything lines up, and how like different thing goes around. And like the removal of the aprons and like the 6 days things, I like that. And like I always said, like you always told me, if I have a question, I'm not gonna lie. Once we get offline, I'm gonna ask these questions. Sorry, companions and stuff like that. To the companions that don't know me, I'm kind of like one of those people. I like to build like relationships like this. So when I ask certain people certain things, I don't feel comfortable talking in front of people. I'm getting over it. It is what it is. But thank you for bearing with me, and thank you, Dr. Randall, for having me on. And I like the pivot points where you were talking about how it pivots and connects it to this, how it goes, you finish one cycle and you go into another cycle, and how this has you in the Old Testament and then it pivots to the New Testament in certain sections. I kind of like those things. It's just, forget it. One of the questions I have, it was about the capstone, the difference between the capstone and the keystone. That was going to be one of my questions for you.
We'll talk offline, but the short version of that is the capstone and the keystone are literally one and the same based on it coming from England to Scotland to here. And as it changed from country to country, we're going to refer to it as different things. But the point that I was trying to make with those slides were people think that it was actually holding up the arches. It wasn't. So that's the key. That's the most important thing in that degree. The most important lesson from that specific point.
Okay. And thank you once again. Thank you for sending these things. I believe that you should give people their flowers while they're still living. I call this man my big brother. because every time I have a question for him or anything, I just text him, and then he'll lead me right to the right direction, and then he'll be like, okay, here you go, find your way. Did you get it yet? Okay, let me lead you another way. And that's what I respect and like about him. One of my other mentors is on this call too. And between Dr. Randall and Dr. Rice and Brother Cooks, who is all world, all everything, if you ever get a chance to listen to them speak and have a conversation with each other, sit back, take notes, and listen. Thank you. Sorry for taking up too much of your time. Yeah, I forgot to say, I heard Brother Harris talk too. My God. My God. Yeah.
He pops to a lot of us, man.
Yeah,
He
heavy
being
hitter.
quiet. He being quiet right now. But Brother Trainham, go ahead. And I did that for a reason, Brother Trainham, before you go ahead and say anything, because we talk about how's this impacting our brothers. This brother just joined the Royal Arch. That's vital, right? That is key. That is key. That he just picked up something that he can share with his cohorts to get them interested in Royal Arch Masonry, which will happen organically, build membership. I'm telling y'all, it's a process. It's this stuff that just don't happen 1, 2, 3, and it just take off. It's a process. Brother Tranham, go ahead.
Brothers, I bring you greetings from Maryland. And again, it's an honor and a pleasure to meet you all. Dr. Randall, please add me to your email distribution. I got this from my grand thrice. You know, you all are, I'm the sitting most excellent grand high priest. I'm past everything else, but telling everybody this is my last one. Then I'm going home and sit down. But again, it's a pleasure to be on here with everybody, and I can't wait for the next one. Everybody have a nice day.
No doubt. Brother Tranham, go ahead and put it in the chat. Brother Witherspoon, Mr. Grand Lecture in like 9,000 houses. Brother Tranham, go ahead and put your email in the chat so I can add you to the distro.
It's only 4.
Okay. Only 4. See how
it's
only 4. Only 4.
On behalf of my most excellent Grand High Priest, Xavier D. Young, Sr., it's a pleasure to be here. I love coming here. I'm glad I got the invite. I first looked at it like, who in the world is inviting me from California? Because everybody I know back home is not a Mason. But this has probably been some of the most enlightening conversations I've had and just been a part of as it pertains to Zoom. So I'm glad to be here. I send them out as soon as I get them to people. I was hoping that the person who asked me was going to be able to get on here. But he was not. He did let me know. But as soon as I get him, I send them out because this is the stuff we need to be able to participate in. Got to be able to build this right, and it's beautiful to be just a part of these kind of conversations. I love it.
No, I appreciate you, brother. Past Grant Thrice Griffin. I'm writing down your email right now, sir. Definitely will add all of y'all to the distro. Again, you guys are what makes this go. In any organization, the people are the most important concept or aspect of that organization. So you guys most certainly make this go. Next month, we're going into the Royal Arch degree. That is going to be a very spirited conversation. I'm going to tell you right now. I got to figure out who's going to do that lecture. I'll get with Burley and we'll figure that out. But that is going to be a very spirited conversation. Now, going forward, we are not opposed to anybody, not people in California, especially for this forum, this platform. Anybody can email me and say they want to do the lecture. We're fine with that, right? We want to give brothers the opportunity to show what they know, and then we want to have that dialogue at the end. So definitely appreciate you all. Brother Grand Lecturer, I don't want to forget you. Go ahead, sir.
Well, let me see. Dr. Randall is this forum is fantastic. I mean, I wish we'd had this sooner. You know, I've been Grand Lecturer for 6 years, and I certainly could have used this on my first year. You know, because it would have helped a lot. Most definitely, it's definitely going to help, especially those young brothers that are coming in. They got all of these questions. I mean, I look forward to talking with them now. A lot quicker, a lot safer. You know, I just think that now with more information, more information can be given. You know, brothers, next month we have grand session, and all you brothers from California that's on here, I just want to thank you for electing me as a grand lecturer for six 6 years, and it hasn't been easy. It's been a lot of work, but I enjoyed it, and I'm hoping that you brothers continue to support me, and if you could pull my coattail every now and then and tell me what you think, I would appreciate it. But thank you very much, and have a good day, brothers. And I'll be seeing you next month.
Awesome. Brother Edge, because Brother Edge is, for you guys that don't know, Fonzo T. Edge, he got his camera off, trying to be shy. He is Brother Harris's right-hand man. He is our deputy Grand Thrice Illustrious Master. So, Brother Edge, go ahead. I know you try to be shy. I don't want to say nothing, but I ain't gonna let you get out of here without saying nothing.
I'm not trying to be shy, but I appreciate the lecture and the conversation between all my brothers, companions, and knights. But that's what we need. We need membership. We need to get our numbers up all over. Council Liberation of California membership committee gave a good presentation at Council Liberation on how to improve membership, because we can now, since they made amalgamation, we can recruit, and I would say you need to check that out on the membership from the Council of Liberation. I'm a member of it, but you need to check it out. That's all I can say, so we can improve membership.
All right, I got you. Brother Moore, we got you, right? You got a chance to say your piece.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I appreciate all y'all again. I know we kind of went a little bit over, and I apologize. Time is valuable. But let's just bow our heads and conclude this prayer, and then conclude it until next month. Father, Lord, we thank you again for this dialogue of men, Father. And there are 25 or 26 or whatever the number was here. Bless each and every family. Bless each and every individual, to bless each and every family that was here, Father. And until we meet again next month, Father, and as we depart from this virtual space, but never from your heart or your space, in your son's precious name, we ask for your blessings. Amen.
Amen.
Brandon,
Amen.
what is grand conversation?